Hello and welcome to Cancer Update 42. It is the 1st of August 2023. It's been 3 days, I think, since I last posted, and a fair bit has happened, so thank you for bearing with me. We've got a fair bit to talk about, so let's go through it. So you would recall from round one of chemotherapy that my difficult days were round 3, 4 and 5, and I would say that has played out again, that my difficult days were days 3, 4 and 5, but the scope to which they were difficult for me was much lower. I had a lot better run this time round, and I'm starting to write up an analysis, because you know I'm an analytic person, you've worked that out by now. I'm writing up an analysis of the reasons that I think that might be. And while I was writing up that analysis, I decided to make the topic of today's conversation something from that list. So I was firstly intending to present that list to you today. I've instead decided to present part of that list to you today, but I'll get to that shortly. So let's go through day 4 of chemo. On day 4 of chemo, I went down to Shirley Strickland Reserve with my brother Noel, my friend Caroline, and Noel's dog, Jamie. Jamie is a greyhound, an ex-race dog, and Noel kindly fostered him when that dog's racing career was over. Jamie is a lovely, lovely, lovely dog. And when we were down at Shirley Strickland Reserve, something happened that I knew was eventually going to happen, and it was lovely when it did happen. And that is, I was recognised publicly by a member of the public. Her name was Kate. Hello, Kate. And the photo of you and I is going to be the last frame of this video. So please enjoy. It was lovely for you to come up and say hello to me and have that chat with me. I did enjoy it. It was lovely. After that walk at the park, I came home and I was quite exhausted. So what I found is I am able to do things on day 3, 4 and 5, but I get worn out quite quickly. So after that walk in the park, came home, had a lie down, and I was out. Similarly, on day 5, which was yesterday, I went to the licensing centre to get a license plate for Zara, my motorbike. And I did get my license plate for Zara. She is now licensed. She is now legal on the roads. But when I got home, I was really tired, and I had to sleep for quite a few hours. So I'm finding that the lethargy is really catching up with me quite a bit. So I am able to do things, but I do get quite lethargic. So I started making a list of all of the differences between round 1 and round 2, because obviously I've had a lot better run on round 2 than I did on round 1. And I make postulations as to why I think I've done better this round than last round. And one of them came down to, a lot of it came down to, for example, having Caroline around. And because I had Caroline around, it meant that little sparks of kindness happened, that when I lived on my own, when I was taking care of myself in round 1, those little sparks of kindness weren't happening. And whilst I was taking care of my immediate needs, I wasn't, having those little sparks of joy. Whereas with having Caroline here, there were little lovely things. And I believe that those things do have a big impact. And it occurred to me that with my mother, with the relationship I had with my mother, I wish I had have done things a little bit differently towards the end of her life. So just to quickly catch you up, my father passed away in 1997. My mother and father were together until my father passed away. So 1997, my father passes away, but my mother lived until 2014. So she lived for another 17 years. And she lived on her own, but she wasn't lonely. And what I mean by that is she had 5 children. She had 5 grandchildren. She had a church group that she was quite active in. And my mother also used to like to play cards. So she would go off to a canasta group or a whist group or a 500 group or a bridge group, and she would play cards. So she had a lot of things in her life that meant that she was not lonely, although for the large part she did live on her own. And I have that same gene as my mother. I'm quite happy living on my own. And Caroline has that gene as well. Caroline is quite happy living on her own. You might recall that Caroline went on a trip around the world. Her intent was to go for 1 year. She ended up only going for 6 months because I unfortunately came down with cancer. But Caroline was actually quite happy to go away and be on her own for a year, just traveling the world. And I'm of the same condition as was my mother, that we don't mind being on our own. We don't mind being alone. We do mind feeling lonely. And then it occurred to me that quite a few of the people that have commented on my YouTube channel have said, "Hey Paul, I love tuning in and seeing you. You're helping me feel less alone." And it made me realise that there's a lot of you out there that are feeling lonely, and this will be a broad generalisation. I do apologise if I've got you wrong. But from my point of view, it seems like a lot of you are in your 60s or 70s, possibly in your 80s, and you're either on your own or you're caring for someone who perhaps has cancer, and that's why you found my channel, and you're feeling quite lonely. And I've reflected that I wish I had have spent those last years of my mother's last few years slightly differently, and I wish I had have put a little bit more effort into bringing some kindness into her life. I certainly did bring kindness into her life, as did my siblings and the grandkids and all of Mum's other friends. I just wish I had done a little bit more. And it occurred to me that a lot of you out there are in that situation, and maybe I can do something to help you, or we can do something to help each other, actually, I should say. Because it occurred to me that the difference between being alone and being lonely is just how you feel in your mind. Like, I can be alone and feel like I'm surrounded by friends. Alternatively, I could feel alone and feel very lonely because I feel isolated. And because some of you have indicated to me that you feel that way, I want to try and put in a bit of effort to try and help you. It occurred to me, for example, that some of the ways that I put joy into my life are, for example, I have French lavender in my garden. I love the smell of French lavender. This particular French lavender came to be in my garden because I visited a friend of mine. She had this in her garden, and she let me pick some of the flowers, and I simply spread them around in my garden bed, and they bloomed. These are very, very easy to propagate. I guarantee you that I have a brown thumb, and if I can propagate these, you can propagate these. And the smell of French lavender, it's a beautiful smell, and it brings me joy. So it occurred to me that there are a few things that we can do, that you can do with me, that might help you feel less alone. And for example, I would say to you, think of some things that bring you joy. Just something that brings you joy. And it would be wonderful, by the way, if it's something free. If it's something free or something that costs cents. I don't want you spending dollars, but it would be lovely if you could get something that's free or just costs you cents. Something like the smell of French lavender. And just to give you an idea of some of the other things that bring me joy, I love blueberries. Okay, I hope you can see those blueberries there. Now, fresh, these are actually quite expensive in Australia. But when you buy them frozen and you defrost them, they're quite affordable. So blueberries bring me a lot of joy, as does French lavender. And another thing that brings me joy is fruit juice. So these are 3 things in my life that, even though I'm here in the house alone, there's no one in the house here right now, I don't feel lonely because I've got things that remind me of of joy. They spark joy in me, and they remind me of times when I've been around people and I've been happy. And it occurred to me that maybe you and I can share those moments. So what I would ask you to do is think inside yourself, what are the things in you that spark joy? Is it the smell of something? Is it the taste of something? Is it the sight of something? And try and put that into your life. Try and bring that joy to your life, because you do deserve it. And I think that's a big difference between being alone and feeling lonely, or getting yourself out of feeling lonely, okay? And I'd really like to help you get there. I think that would be really lovely. So that's probably all I want to talk to you about today. So what I'd say, please go and think about those things that spark you joy, and see if you can get some of them into your life, and write to me and tell me what they are. Tell me those things that spark joy for you, and how you bring them into your life, and we can share that moment together, okay? And for anyone that writes down in the comments, and if you're feeling lonely, just say you're feeling lonely. And if someone else sees that comment, could you please write to them, and just write them a nice comment, and just make them feel loved, okay? Make them feel less lonely, okay? That'd be lovely. All right, I'll talk to you again soon. I am compiling a full list of why I think round 2 went better than round 1, but I'm going to leave that for another day, okay? So as Sarah Pog would say, be kind and make good choices. Thank you very much. See you later.